بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد سيد المرسلين خاتم النبيين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. عباد الله، أوصيكم وإياي بتقوى الله وطاعته، وأحذركم وإياي عن عصيانه تعالى ومخالفة أمره. يقول الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم: من عمل صالحا فلنفسه ومن أساء فعليها وما ربك بظلام للعبيد. My dear brothers and sisters, let us begin by entering into a state of ibadah, a state of worship, a state in which we remember Allah, in which we empty our hearts and minds from all the thoughts and emotions of this life, of this dunya. And we enter into a state where we center ourselves and feel a deepened and heightened presence before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in this state, we bear witness that there is no God but Allah alone. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lah. A testimony that is, as we are taught, the key to paradise, the key to Allah's approval. And we complete this testimony of faith by bearing witness that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is his beloved servant and messenger, who was sent with the final message of Islam, of peace, of Islam not only in the sense of the religion that was revealed through Muhammad, but Islam in the sense of Dinillah, of God's religion, the religion that Allah revealed to every one of his prophets, starting with Adam, through Nuh, through Abraham, through Ismail and Ishaq, through Moses, through Sayyidina Isa, Jesus Christ, and through Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Peace and blessings be upon them all. We bear witness that our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is Allah's beloved messenger, who was sent with a message of peace to teach us how to live a life that is not only cognizant of God, that has the right thoughts about God, but also the right way to worship, the ideal way to worship Allah, a complete way of worship, a complete way of life. We invoke Allah's salams, Allah's salawat, Allah's barakat upon the soul of our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, and that we earn his intercession on the day that he shall be the first to intercede for his ummah. My dear brothers and sisters, this week on Monday, the Saudi government announced that it was limiting the Hajj this year to 1,000 people, and only from within Saudi Arabia. A few days before that, they had said that they would limit it only for those within Saudi Arabia. But since, I think last year, over 600,000 people, Hajjis were from Saudi Arabia, they had to limit it to 1,000, which effectively means the cancellation of the Hajj, really. Last year, there were almost 3 million and 640,000 were Saudi residents. I doubt that the number of pilgrims has been as small as 1,000 since pre-Islamic times. In fact, the Hajj, as we know, has been an annual event since the Prophet Ibrahim instituted it, and the numbers have increased since then. So as we've said, effectively, this is really a cancellation of the Hajj this year. Of course, we fully understand the dangers of allowing the Hajj to be conducted this year. It would have been a major disaster for the Ummah, as it would have been not only a great super spreader, but perhaps the mother of all super spreaders for this coronavirus pandemic. The media have described the disappointment of many who were looking forward to making the Hajj this year and have already booked their trips and made their plans and even paid for their tickets. A New York Times article a couple of days ago mentions several such people and details their disappointment. One was a 60-year-old village official of a Lebanese mountain village, a gentleman by the name of Abdul al-Hakkoum, who had been saving his cash for much of his life in the hopes of one day traveling from his village to perform the Hajj. It was all set to go this year until the coronavirus pandemic forced Saudi Arabia to effectively cancel the Hajj. He said, "It is the dream of every Muslim believer to visit Mecca and do the Hajj. But the pandemic came with no warning and took away my dream." Another was a 72-year-old retired port worker in Pakistan. His 6 children had pooled their money to finance his trip. An Egyptian school administrator, a lady by the name Zainab Ibrahim, burst into tears when she knew she couldn't do it. "It was my only wish," she said. "To cancel completely is such a shame." "May God relieve us of this burden," she said, presumably of the coronavirus as well. She had applied 4 years in a row to a government lottery that offers free trips to the Hajj, and every year she failed to win the lottery. So this year, she scraped together the cost from her own funds. "I wanted to go while my health is still good," said Ms. Ibrahim, who is 58 years old and who earns only $175 a month. So you can imagine, brothers and sisters, the effort that it took for someone like Zainab Ibrahim, who earns that little, to scrape together the cost of the Hajj, which probably is like maybe 2 years of her salary. Booking her plans, booking her trip, making her ticket, and then to get the news of the cancellation just a couple of weeks before her planned departure. As you know, Al-Adha will occur this year on July 31st, and you have to arrive at least 3 days earlier minimum if you go straight to Mecca and do the Hajj. A lot of pilgrims come maybe 2 weeks earlier, spend a week in Medina, and then move to Mecca, spend the week of the Hajj in Mecca, culminating in the Hajj. Another big chunk of Hujjaj, they go to the Hajj first, and after finishing the Hajj, then they spend a week in Medina, or whatever portion of it. As many of you know, the Saudi government has been forced for many years now to issue a quota for each country based upon their population. It's approximately, not exactly, but for different countries it's different, but it's pretty much like I think like 0.1% of their population. Because if they didn't do that, the number of pilgrims would easily overwhelm the place. I remember my very first and my only Hajj, I've done many Umrahs, but my only Hajj in December of 1973. That year was the first time, it was just after the very first 1973 in May or June of that year, there was the oil embargo, and resulted in a much raising of the price of oil. But until then, Saudi Arabia was not as developed, nearly as developed as it is now. In fact, some of the streets in Jeddah were still unpaved. There were still dirt roads in Jeddah. You don't see that now anymore. But that year was the first time in history that the number of pilgrims to Mecca, to Hajj, exceeded 1 million. At that time, the sacred mosque has not been as expanded as it has been today. Both the Prophet's mosque as well as the Masjid al-Haram in Mecca and the Prophet's mosque in Medina were not the current enlarged ones with super highways cutting through Mecca and Medina. The traffic was horrendous, and all the streets in Mecca were completely gridlocked because as people tried to approach the Kaaba, there was just total gridlock. Also, it was the custom, I don't know if it still is right now in Saudi Arabia, but until that time, was the custom ever since the time of, even before the Prophet, that every year during the Hajj season, every family from all over Arabia, and this comes all of Saudi Arabia, of course, every family would just shut that house down. They would pack the whole family. They would all go to Mecca and perform the Hajj. It was the equivalent of the annual family trip in America. The Hajj was an annual family trip for every Saudi family. A Saudi then would have performed the Hajj every year until he or she became disabled. In the last 40 plus years, going on almost 50 years now, since I did my Hajj, the Saudi government has greatly expanded the space to accommodate the enormous increase in pilgrims. And yet it still has to limit the number of pilgrims. It has also requested that Saudis who have already performed their Hajj refrain from doing it again to give a chance to those who have not yet performed their Hajj. Currently, in almost every Muslim majority country, you have to be on a waiting list for the Hajj. Another heartbreaking story in the New York Times article was a story of a 45-year-old Afghan man whose name is Imam Turk from a farming village in Kunduz province, Afghanistan. 15 people from his embattled village had been waiting for their turn to do the Hajj. Some of his neighbors had even sold land to pay for their trip. Mr. Turk and 4 of his relatives registered for the pilgrimage 4 years ago, but only he made the list this year, which made him feel enormously happy and was so elated. Now, he is very sad, he said, because every Muslim hopes to go to Hajj once in his whole life, and when it was my turn, it was cancelled. I'm very upset, he said, because I'm not sure if I'll be alive in the next few days, let alone next year. A couple of years ago, a New York Times article pointed out that there are 1.8 million Muslims alive today. If they were waiting online standing in line, like a line to enter the movies or something, to perform the Hajj, and every person did it once in their lifetimes, at the current rate of 3 million pilgrims a year, it would take 600 years for them all to get through to perform the Hajj once. And that's only for those who are alive today, not counting future births and growth in the Muslim Ummah. And even if the Saudi government succeeds in doubling their capacity, and they're really working on expanding the capacity of the sacred mosque. In fact, they are really demolishing a lot of the city to expand it. Even if it doubles, it would take 300 years to let the current population of Muslims go through. You would have to wait, brothers and sisters, more than half a dozen lifetimes until you get your chance to the Hajj turnstile, if you waited online and just, didn't have a means to jump ahead of the line. That gives you an idea of the crush, of the immensity of the demand over the capacity of Saudi Arabia to accommodate the pilgrims who want to perform the Hajj. So only those who have connections to jump ahead of the line, those who are lucky enough to be Saudis or to live in Saudi Arabia, since the Saudi government reserves a quarter of the pilgrim quota for those who are resident in Saudi Arabia. Or if you are not lucky enough to live in a country like Western countries, like the United States, where the quota comfortably accommodates the demands of all the American Muslims who wish to embark on the Hajj, the chances of making it, brothers and sisters, are pretty slim. Indonesia, for example, which has the world's largest number of Muslims, I understand the wait time for Hajj is between 7 years and 37 years. A Pew poll showed that about 9% of the Muslims globally have performed the Hajj. That means more than 9 out of 10 Muslims, more than 90%, 91% of Muslims globally have not performed the Hajj. So of the 1.8 million, look at 1.5 million have not done the Hajj. Now, clearly, brothers and sisters, the chances of these who have not done the Hajj, who are waiting, who don't have the means to jump ahead of the line, they are not likely to make the Hajj in their lifetime, even if they can afford it financially. So this, brothers and sisters, puts into sharper context the frustration and the disappointment of those who got their Hajj plans cancelled this year. I therefore have a suggestion to make to the Saudi government. It is time to start offering a virtual Hajj experience, not only for those who have made plans this year who are hoping to perform their Hajj, but for the more than 90% of the global Ummah who will never get the chance to perform Hajj in their lifetimes. And they desire to do it. None of them can scrape the funds and will scrape the funds to do it. So what do we do for these people? A virtual Hajj is a partial solution at the very least. Most of you have heard of virtual home tours that allow someone or allow us to tour and see the inside of a home. Now, what is my argument for this? Now, we know for sure that a certain percentage of those who had intended to go to Hajj this year and those who are on the list to go to Hajj will pass away before the next Hajj season or before their turn comes. And among those who survive, there will be a number who will not be able to make it for one reason or another. Health reasons, some financial, something happened. There are always reasons that prevent people from being able to make it. And we have faith that Allah, who is almighty and infinitely compassionate, will reward all of those who have intended to do the Hajj this year, but who are prevented by the COVID-19 pandemic, or even those who plan to go for Hajj, but did not get the visa for it. Allah will reward them as if they had performed it, because we are told, the hadith, the Prophet tells us, that whoever intends to do a good deed, but is not able to do it, Allah will reward him as if he did it. If he actually did it, Allah will give him a multiple reward. Especially if they pass away before their next Hajj season, or they can't make it next year because of illness or some other reason. Now, another argument that I also apply here is that we know that Islamic law allows for a disabled person to appoint someone to perform the Hajj on their behalf. There's a hadith of a companion of the Prophet who came to the Prophet and said, "My mother had intended to do the Hajj next year, but she died before she could do it. Should I do it on her behalf? Can I do it on her behalf?" He asked Rasulullah. The Prophet said, yes. She had promised to do it, and therefore it is an obligation. It is, if she had a debt, we do not pay her debt. This is a debt to Allah, and therefore you should do it on her behalf. So this hadith gives us the rationale to fulfill the intention of a person who had intended to do Hajj, but death overtook them before they could fulfill it. So because we can appoint someone to do Hajj on our behalf, if we cannot do it, it is therefore time to think of alternatives to being completely shut out, because 91% of the Muslim Ummah is being shut out and will be shut out of performing Hajj in this lifetime. And that's something that Muslim thinkers, Muslim leaders, and the government of Saudi Arabia should really factor and should consider. And Allah is compassionate, and we too should be compassionate towards these individuals. So my suggestion of structuring a high quality, professionally done, as much as possible, figured out and arranged virtual Hajj will at least give those disappointed Hajjis this year, and the more than the 1.5 billion Muslims worldwide who will never get the chance to perform it, a legitimate partial experience of the Hajj. It will enable them to participate emotionally in the Hajj, to participate mentally, to participate spiritually in the experience, although they will not be able to do it physically. Now, how might this work? Here's a possible scenario that I thought of, and I only had a couple of days to think about it, so I have not refined it completely. But let us assume that this will be done the way we do our online Jumu'ahs through Zoom. and professional tech experts will know better how to best address and refine the technological aspects of this. So what I'm proposing, the Saudi Ministry of Hajj, with the cooperation of the government of each Muslim majority country, assign a mutawwif for each country. The virtual pilgrims are given a link with which to log in at a set upon agreed time on a digital platform, such as a laptop, a tablet, or phone. Now, of course, if virtual reality technology can be put together, and they have these virtual reality helmets, that would make the experience much more profound and feels much more real. But I don't know what the logistical challenges of obtaining and distributing 2.5 or maybe even more million virtual reality helmets to over more than 50 countries. Making sure the technology works is something that I'm not aware of, but I recognize could be a logistical impediment. But at any point, let's just say that they do it on their laptops or their tablets or iPhones, or digital phones. At the first session, the mutawwif will explain the process of the virtual Hajj. He speaks to them in their local language. He ends by leading the pilgrims in a process where they assign to him, give him like a power of attorney, so to speak, the physical aspect of performing the Hajj, just the physical aspect. And that he pledges to engage them and lead them spiritually, emotionally, and mentally as they perform the Hajj along with him, or as if they watch him and participate with what they can. So starting at a set date and for a specified number of days, and I'm assuming here, let's say they start with visiting the Prophet's mosque and then ending with the Hajj, they would say start on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, and they will continue to be with him until the 13th of Dhul Hijjah. And during these 5-6 days, they will accompany, virtually speaking, they will virtually accompany the mutawwif at all times. They will even sleep when he sleeps, they eat when he eats. In other words, they adjust their bodies, although they are locally in their respective home countries, so that their bodies will start living according to Saudi time and Saudi local time, the Saudi rhythms. He performs the Hajj and he leads the virtual pilgrims of that particular country, instructing them in their national language and enacting every phase of the Hajj from their homes, wherever they are. To illustrate what I mean, let's say that they start doing the mutawwif on his visit to the Prophet's mosque in Medina on the morning of the 8th of Dhul Hijjah, just before Fajr. At the Prophet's mosque, the mutawwif joins the Jama'ah for the congregational Fajr prayer, and the virtual pilgrims would simultaneously join in the prayer from their homes. They were doing Fajr according to Medina time. And then after that, he visits the Prophet's tomb, stands by where the Ahl Sufa sit. Ahl Sufa is this place where actually the word Sufa is an Arabic word. And from this Arabic word, the English word sofa comes from. So Ahl Sufa, the Sufa is actually like a place, like a sofa. There's a bench actually, where the people who are known, who used to sit outside the Prophet's quarters and to greet him every morning and to hear to learn from him. And that's like the sweet spot in the Masjid of Medina, apart from the Rawdah, which is between the Mimbar and the Prophet's tomb. And that there's an area called the Rawdah, the garden. And the Prophet said it's a garden of, this area is the garden of paradise. These are the two locations people love to pray the most, and at the Prophet's tomb, they make dua in front of it. In that location, the Prophet is buried together with his companions, Sayyidina Abu Bakr and Sayyidina Umar, are the three people buried there. So the mutawwif would go there, and he would make a dua, and the virtual pilgrims will join him there. After this is done, the mutawwif then proceeds on his journey to Mecca, stopping at the mosque located at what's called the miqat point. The miqat is a point around Mecca once the pilgrims come to this point, they have to be in a state of ihram. State of ihram is a state of prohibition. It means a state of sacredness. The word haram means sacred, also means prohibited. That means in the state of ihram, a muhrim, meaning the person who is a pilgrim, whether he's doing umrah or hajj or both, or either, you're forbidden from clipping your fingernails, from removing or clipping your hair. That's why people don't have a bath, so that they don't accidentally pull their hair or whatever. You can't comb your hair. You can't engage in any sexual activity, and you can't hunt when you're in state of ihram. So there's a mosque at the miqat point from when you come from Medina to Mecca. So the mutawaf would stop there. He would allow, in fact, that mosque has shower stalls for the people who want to have a shower there, a final shower before they continue on in their state of ihram. The mutawaf will allow time for the virtual pilgrims who need to have a shower. They can have a shower, and then they change from their normal clothes and don the ihram. And then he performs the 2 sunnah rakats of ihram, and the virtual pilgrims also do their 2 sunnah rakats of ihram. They then join him and follow him as he makes the niyyah, the intention for the hajj. Nawaitul ihrama bil hajj. I intend the ihram for hajj. Or if they want to do hajj and umrah together, you can do that too. It's called qiran when you do the hajj and umrah together in one event. Then they collectively start doing reciting the talbiyah. لبيك اللهم لبيك لبيك لا شريك لك لبيك إن الحمد والنعمة لك والملك لا شريك لك, which means here we are, O Allah, here we are at your service, here we are, no partner have you, praise and blessings are yours indeed, the kingdom too, no partner have you. I'm confident, brothers and sisters, that once the virtual pilgrims start reciting the talbiyah, many of them will start getting emotional and actually feel like that they're on a hajj journey. For instance, I have no doubt that the gentleman from Imam Mukhtar, Turkey, from Afghanistan, or the Egyptian Zainab Ibrahim, will start sobbing and crying tears of joy and happiness. For even though they may not be performing the Hajj physically, they will be drawn undoubtedly into the spiritual vortex of the Hajj. The mere imagery and the sounds of the talbiyah and the visual of praying with the people in the masjid of the Prophet's mosque, all of that will draw them into the experience, and it will be very, very nourishing to their souls. So the mutawaf then proceeds and leads the virtual pilgrims as he proceeds on to Mecca. Upon arriving, he leads them in performing tawaf al-qudum, which means a tawaf of arrival, going 7 times around the Kaaba, at the end of which he touches and maybe even kisses the black stone. After that, the pilgrims then join him as he prays 2 rakats of Salat al-Tawaf, the Salah of Tawaf, which is done just beside or behind Maqam Ibrahim, ideally behind, but with the crowd, people do it as close as they can get to the Maqam Ibrahim. But in this case, he'll do it behind it. Then he proceeds to perform the sa'i, walking to and fro between the 2 mounds of Safa and Marwa. Then he spends the night in Medina. He spends the night in Mina. Mina is now it's part of enlarged Mecca, but it's a neighborhood. And when he sleeps, the virtual pilgrims will also go to sleep when he does, as the local time in Mecca would be. On the morning of the 9th of Dhul Hijjah, which is the day of Arafat, they would join the mutawif on his trip to the plain of Arafat. There they would join the mutawif in performing the Dhuhr and Asr prayers. They do it Asr, Dhuhr and Asr done Jama'ah at Arafat. There's a mosque now in the plain of Arafat. They listen to the Khatib give the appointed Khutba, and they spend the day with him in prayers and supplications. At sunset, the Hujjaj would then leave Arafat towards Muzdalifah. At Muzdalifah, they pray the Maghrib and the Isha combined. The virtual pilgrims watch him as he picks up 70 pebbles for the stoning, the rajm, stoning of Satan ritual in Mina. And after praying Fajr on Eid Day at Muzdalifah, the virtual pilgrims joined the Mutawif as he then proceeds to halt at Al-Mash'ar al-Haram, which is an optional stop, but it's mentioned in the Quran. There's a spot called Al-Mash'ar al-Haram, which means the Mash'ar means to feel, the feeling of the sacredness, which means where you feel the sense of the Masjid al-Haram, or you feel the sacred. That's the meaning of the words, but it's the name of a place now. They can halt there just to repeat the takbir, repeat the talbiyah, recite du'as, and then they proceeds to Mina for the next, after he'll be proceeding to Mina, back to Mina. On reaching Mina, they watch as the Mutawif cast 7 stones at the Satan stoning point called Al-Aqaba. There are 3 places, but on the morning of the Eid, he only throws 7 stones at this one place. After that, he performs a blood sacrifice, typically a sheep. The virtual pilgrims also would each offer a sacrifice done locally at their locations, which would definitely have been already arranged. After that, he has his hair clipped or his whole head shaved. And so do the virtual pilgrims. Then he proceeds to the Kaaba in Mecca to perform Tawaf al-Ifadah. Then in the morning of the following 3 days, the virtual pilgrims join the Mutawif as he visits Mina and casts 7 stones at each of the 3 Satan stoning points. So 21 stones each day for 3 days, the remaining 63 pebbles of the 7 that he picked up at Muzdalifah. After the 3rd day of doing that, the Hajj is done. Now, of course, the feeling will not be the same as physically going there and being there, but it is better than nothing. Importantly, it allows a release of the pent-up feelings of frustration for the virtual pilgrims. It will provide them enormous psychological comfort and emotional comfort and spiritual value and nourishment. Moreover, they will have properly learned the Hajj, because many pilgrims really don't know what they're doing on location, or they cannot concentrate properly because of a stomach bug that they got from a change in climate, or the physical, demands of the Hajj aggravated a chronic condition that they may have, such as a bad back or arthritic knees or something. I mean, with 3 million people, you're going to have all kinds of, especially at different age categories. And as you get older, we have all these chronic conditions which get aggravated by the intensity of such a trip. And it interferes with the ability to really even enjoy the Hajj. So in this situation, they will learn better the Hajj. They will not, be impeded by their chronic health conditions or other things. And then if they get the chance to do the Hajj the next year or the year after, they'll have benefited from this virtual Hajj experience. And if they do not survive, or if they wind up being unable to perform the Hajj in the forthcoming years, at least their hearts will at least feel happier. They'll feel, they didn't get a complete Hajj, but they got a part Hajj in a sense. And as for the 91% of the Ummah who will never get the chance to perform it, they'll at least get a taste of the Hajj. And hopefully, if they get, maybe Allah will accept it as a Hajj. Because we said Allah will always reward those who wanted to do it but could not do it. They were prevented from doing it. Now, I want to share with you a personal story. A few years ago, I was fortunate to have been invited to join, by then he was the ex-Prime Minister of Malaysia, Abdul, who was a student of my late father and a dear family friend. He invited me to join his wife and some of his close friends for Umrah. This was in November, December of that year, a few years ago. It was the last Umrah I did, actually. It was the first time I had ever done a Umrah with a VVIP, as they say. It was brothers and sisters, super special. Not only because we had the Saudi security clearing a path for us. At the Prophet's Mosque in Medina, we had the whole Al-Sufa area completely to ourselves. Or in Mecca, they would clear a path for us they were accompanying us with tawaf, clear a path for us to touch the black stone and kiss it at our leisure, which was very, very nice. We didn't get jostled, bumped, and pushed around as in a typical Umrah or Hajj. But what even made it far more special for me was the mutawwifs who were assigned to us. They were the cream of the crop, the very best of the best, very highly informed and extremely, extremely capable. In Mecca, we had two mutawwifs. One was an 84-year-old gentleman who looked and moved like he was no more than 50 years old, like a 50-year-old man. He knew everything about the history of the place. Now, as you know, the Masjid al-Haram today, the sacred mosque, has been so expanded that the footprint, the walls of the sacred mosque today encompass the whole town of Mecca at the time of the Prophet. So he entered the Masjid al-Haram, and at one point he stopped and says, where we are standing right now is the location of the house where the Prophet was born. I had goosebumps and I almost jumped out of my skin when he said that, brothers and sisters. Some distance later, he says, this is the house, this location is where the Prophet's first wife, Khadija, had her home. And he went on like that. These thoughts that course through my mind, you have no idea, brothers and sisters, how much richer this level of information made my Umrah experience. When it was time for us to perform the tawaf and the sa'i, he said, well, I'm a little older right now, so he transferred us to a gentleman, a young man, very tall, young Saudi man, who led us both in the tawaf around the Kaaba and the sa'i between Safa and Marwa. And he had the greatest repertoire of du'as I've ever heard. His du'as while we were performing the tawaf and the sa'i was so beautiful, brothers and sisters, that my soul was transported to another level. Never in my life had I heard so many du'as, so beautiful, so deep in meaning, so poetic, that I could not help myself from telling Mr. Badawi, I have to translate a couple of lines. You just won't believe how beautiful just these words are, especially in Arabic. So brothers and sisters, I'm sharing this story because if the assigned mutawwis or the virtual pilgrims were given translations of these du'as, would also would have this kind of information, the Saudi government, or Ministry of Hajj in particular, made sure that the appointed mutawwifs for each of these countries who would be leading the virtual pilgrims have this level of information to the virtual pilgrims, have this kind of du'as, maybe part in Arabic, maybe combination, maybe translated into the local languages. I assure you that these virtual pilgrims would experience a level of spiritual participation that would guaranteed be far more exalted than what they would experience had they actually been able to perform the Hajj physically this year. The point I'm making, brothers and sisters, is that if given due thought and preparation, a virtual Hajj like this could be in some ways a very special experience, at the very least a teaching experience. And certainly a special experience. And let us remember, brothers and sisters, that at the end of the day, the Hajj is about visiting with Allah. It's about an experience that transforms the pilgrim into a state of spiritual consciousness that is special, that is transformative, that makes the pilgrim feel closer to Allah. We're not suggesting that this virtual Hajj experience would be a substitute for the complete Hajj experience. Rather, what I'm suggesting that it can be a supplement or a complement to the real thing. For those who undergo the virtual Hajj and then get to do the real Hajj, they will be better prepared. As I said earlier, for those who will never get the chance, and unfortunately, brothers and sisters, the number of these people will only increase with time. It will be the next best thing, and hopefully, in Allah's eyes, a substitute. Let us pray, brothers and sisters, that this message reaches the Saudi authorities and they would consider it with open hearts and open minds. Ameen. Wallahu ta'ala, astajib li wa lakum. Pray to Allah that He answer our supplications. الحمد لله حمدا كثيرا كما أمر، ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له المتعالي على المشاركة والمشاكلة لسائر البشر، ونشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم عبده ورسوله النبي المعتبر. واعلموا أن الله تعالى صلى على النبي قديما، فقال تعالى: ولم يزل قائلا عليما وآمرا حكيما، تنبيها لكم وتعليما وتشريفا لقدر النبي وتعظيما. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. وارض عن الأربعة الخلفاء السادة الحنفاء المميزين بعده بالرعاية والولاية والاصطفاء، ذوي القدر العلي والفخر الجلي، ساداتنا وموالينا وأئمتنا أبي بكر الصديق وعمر وعثمان وعلي. ورد عن السلطان السعيدين السلن الشهيدين القمرين النورين، سر شباب أهل الجنة في الجنة وريحان نبي هذه الأمة، الإمام أبي محمد الحسن والإمام أبي عبد الله الحسين، وعن أمهما فاطمة الزهراء، وعن جدتهما خديجة الكبرى، وعن عائشة أم المؤمنين، وعن بقية أزواج رسول الله أجمعين، وعن التابعين وتابع التابعين وتابعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات، إنك سميع قريب مجيب الدعوات يا رب العالمين. اللهم وأيد الإسلام وأعلي وانصر كلمة الحق والإيمان. اللهم اجعل خير زماننا آخرة، وخير أعمالنا خواتيمها، وخير أيامنا يوم لقائك، وارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا. اللهم ارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا. اللهم ارفع مقتك وغضبك عنا، ولا تسلط علينا بذنوبنا من لا يخافك فينا ولا يرحمنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم أصلح أحوالنا وبلغنا مما يرضيك آمالنا، واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا وبالسعادة آجالنا، وتوفنا وأنت راض عنا يا رب العالمين. أسأل الله العظيم رب العرش الكريم أن يغفر لي ولكم وللمسلمين أجمعين. عباد الله، إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي، يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. فاذكروا الله العظيم يذكركم، وأقم الصلاة.